Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hammad. I am facilitator at school going to campus. I am excited to interview Mikhal. And before you are being, I want to thank you for joining. Use any. Oh, Mikhal, could you please introduce yourself?
So it's good to be here. I'm Michael Ballard from, as you can see, Resiliency for Life, and I consult and talk to people about resiliency, which is all about what some people call mindset. So, what are your beliefs and values that influence and become your attitude, which becomes your behavior? And that behavior, your habits, is what drives you. Some toward success, some get in the way and muddle your life up, and the odd habit gets in the way of health and happiness, prosperity and success. So resiliency doesn't replace mental health therapy if you need it, because some of us are just born that way, and that's not a crime. I had cancer. I didn't cause it. I had to go for treatment. If you have mental health issues, if you have access, you go for treatment. But for everyday life's frustrations, everyday life's big stuff issues or overwhelming issues, resiliency can help us have a higher quality experience and often have a much higher quality outcome. So that's what I do.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my first question is this: who is your favorite person and why?
Oh, I have many different categories. So one of my forever people is a former neighbor who since passed at 94, but she was politely ferocious about race and human beings and rights and equality. And the time she invested so that we could be equal and different, and growing up in a culture where they didn't just have race issues, they had shadeism issues within the racism issues. Absolutely appalling. I can't imagine that I could go through the front door because I was the right color, and my siblings had to go through the side door because they were another shade. So she helped, first of all, explain what the world was like for her in the 1940s to the 1970s. And she put her intellectual elbows out and formed a political party. So in her nation, she helped get the party of racists unelected. And so very quickly after that, people of every race could get an education to grade 12, regardless of race. And she did so many other things. So she gave me, to use simple words, a meat and potatoes point of view of what it was like to be on the bad end of racism. And then it was like to have a sibling who was even treated more poorly because he was a darker shade. I hadn't had anybody I knew. And so she explained that to me in ways that were very low key, no anger, still some frustration, but wow, she is forever in my heart for her courage to push and break boundaries in a positive manner. And we had a little tease back and forth because after she graduated from university with her teaching certificate, I found out for 1 year she taught in the high school that I attended, but the year before I got there. So I teased her that she only was there for a year because she found out I was coming, and she went, no, not Michael. I can't teach Michael. Of course, we didn't know each other then, but she always took me very serious on that point and went, no, Michael, I would have stayed. I said, I'm just teasing it. Then I get the you. So she's one of my forever people because of her clarity of thinking, her respect to the racists, and she just got them good. And in time, her husband became a member of the British Empire because this small country she was in was part of that. And she didn't. And I said, but why? Oh, she said, my dear, when my husband got that order, he could go through the front door of these places of privilege, and they couldn't stop him. But because I didn't have it, I didn't fight it. I went through the kitchen. I got to talk to the wait staff, the chefs, the dishwasher, and tell them, here's what's next. He's in the front room, making him uncomfortable. I'm back here with you. We're going to, my words, bookend them, and they're not going to know what hit them. So strategy, strategic thinking, wisdom, patience, nonviolence. Her and her friends and her husband helped build a school so that all kids of their race before the government got changed could get a grade 8 education. Just always persistent to push the cause forward and up level everybody. So Marion is one of my heroes and one of my forever people. Another one is Mr. Campbell, who taught me math in high school. He was also my neighbor. Him and his wife had me young ladies sit, as I used to tell them when their daughters were 2 and 4. I don't babysit. These are not babies. These are young ladies, so I expect young lady behavior, not baby behavior. And they had a big smile on their face. Well, when I got to high school, in my second year, he closed the door, gave us all a message. He was going off of the curriculum approved by the provincial and state government and the federal government, and he was going to teach us math that counted. So house loans, house mortgages, car leases, car rentals, car buying loans, credit cards, savings bonds, math for life. He said, nowhere in a 4-year or 5-year curriculum do we do this. It's ridiculous. And yet this is the most important math of your life. So Mr. Campbell, over the course of a few weeks that year, took us through all those important steps. Oh, how to do your taxes. I could do my taxes so well by the end of that year. I have only paid people to do my taxes 3 or 4 times in 50 years of paying taxes, just to make sure I was still doing it right. So Mr. Campbell, to me, to have the courage to step outside of what he was supposed to do what was actually necessary for me and everybody else, remarkable. Again, like Marion, the courage to be uncomfortable, but to do the right thing. Wow. And then I have another teacher. See, I have a spelling and grammar problem. So I took 5 years to do 4 years of high school. I'm not stupid, but I'm not spelling and grammar smart. And telling me you can do this if you practice more doesn't work that way. I can do my best, and it doesn't do it well enough. So I had Mrs. Ruth Hogg, and I got 70s and 80s in her class. If I wasn't working 12, 32 hours a week to pay bills, I probably could have got 80s and 90s. But I said, why you don't penalize me like other teachers for grammar and spelling mistakes? It's an English literature class, not a grammar spelling class. You're smart. You're getting marks for being smart. I'm not going to sabotage your grade because I want to be nitpicky about spelling and grammar. It's a literature class talking about metaphors, introducing you to language across several countries and from the last 4 centuries. That's why, Michael. It was like, wow. Because one of my other teachers gave me a 49 2 years in a row because my spelling and grammar wasn't perfect. So it's to get an 89 for the year, and then you write the exam, and you would have got a 79 in the exam, but because of spelling and grammar, it lowered your marks so much that you failed the year. And yet the topic was not spelling and grammar. It was science. Anyways, so Mrs. Hogg was one of my teaching heroes. And then, well, I had in corporate life, I had 3 gentlemen who all took a particular interest in me, and one of them was Trevor Hunt. And Mr. Trevor Hunt, Michael, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. You don't really eat an elephant, Michael, please. They're a sacred creature. But you speak in metaphors. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. You were hired to produce $1 million in sales in the year. If you focus on the million, it could be overwhelming. So let's break it down into $2,000 and $5,000 pieces. Well, suddenly the job was easy. You have 46 weeks a year to do this. So 46 into 1 million, 46 weeks into 51 accounts. 1 account is 300,000. So you think they'll get a little more attention than the little $10,000 accounts? Michael, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. In fact, I think you can do it in 40 weeks a year, not 46. So God bless Mr. Hunt for making big and overwhelming for the new sales rookie, I was also a test. Everybody before me for 20 to 30 years had a university degree. Almost all of them were honors. Ontario has a college system, 2-year and 3-year diplomas, very practical, hands-on. So that was me. Because of the spelling issues, I didn't have high enough grades to go to university, so I went to college, which served me well. But Mr. Hunt made the job less intimidating, much easier, and I ended up getting promoted 4 more times after working with him because he made the tough break down into pieces. He said, it's numbers. Just pay attention to your numbers. So those are some of my forever people. Oh, and one last teacher that was influential. There's many, but Mr. Edward Sargentson, it's grade 9. I had confidence in my musical abilities. I had confidence in a lot of things, but physical sports, no. And of course, in Canada, we have what some people call football. It's that funny shaped thing that's not round, as opposed to football in the other parts of the world where it's round, and we call it soccer in North America. But anyways, catching a football intimidated me. I got the right size hands. I remember having other students and my music teachers saying, those hands, you should be able to be a virtuoso pianist. I said, no, I can play the piano better than most, but this stops at an intermediate level of skill. I couldn't get the brain to cooperate despite a lot of training. But my phys ed teacher, he, like Trevor, broke things down into little pieces. So he taught me visualization. Michael, the football's coming. See him pull back and throw. Now, put your arms way out. See the football coming? Where's it coming? Step into it. Step forward to it. Step back from it. You're going to catch it, and you've caught it. He broke down a physical skill into parts and had me practice here. Visualization is one of the most important skills we can practice if we practice it safely in a healthy manner. Because what I was doing before I got good at catching was, I fumbled again. He was, no, you've got the body to do this. Look at the size of those hands. And I became twice as successful. So years later in the cancer ward, when I was fighting for my life, one of the people I remember? Mr. Sargentson. Just like Mr. Hunt, who had been my trainer 3 or 4 years previously in corporate, break this fight of cancer down to the hour. Every hour, what am I going to do? I'm going to sleep for 6 to 8 hours. I'm going to move slowly, but I'm going to move. I do not want to lie in bed going, oh! It's easy when you're told you're very ill and cancer's in 4 locations to think, I'm going to die. I decided to break it down. Cancer might physically kill me, but rationally, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, socially, I was going to give it a run for its money. 30 years later, 5 major treatments and 2 bouts of cancer, here I am. So I'm not saying my attitude saved me, but my attitude changed the quality of my experience substantially. So Mr. Edward Sargentson passed in the last 3 years, and I was sad. I managed to go back and thank him at the school, and he cried. I said, you don't realize what you did. You taught me visualization for this, but I used it for my breathing exercises. I used it for my walking exercises. And he was like, oh, I said, so you thought you were teaching me how to catch a football, and you were, but you gave me a life skill. I've approached that for sales meetings, for sales calls, for presentations, because I've got to present to audiences in the thousands and work with audiences as small as 6. Last night, I worked for a group of 3, and the visualization really pays off. So that's some of my mentors. Lauren, my martial arts teacher, who taught me some powerful breathing skills. Another mentor. Breathe, Michael, breathe. Breathe in strength and passion. Exhale stress. Feel the power. Wow. That was 13 to 17, 4 days a week, 3 hours at a time. Another life-affirming, life-changing man in my life. So those are some of them. I got a long list, but partially I have a long list because my parents told me, we will teach you as much as we can, but you need to pay attention to the other people. They all have something to teach you, or several things. And just be careful. The odd one will have bad intent, and pay attention. They'll try to teach you something that could get you in trouble with the police. And I was like, oh, but they were right. So it's been a real blessing to have all these different people in my life teach me all these things that ultimately led to my resiliency being higher than average.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my second question is this. What is your favorite book?
Oh, oh. I don't have just one, as you can tell. There's several. Let's start with a communications book. It's called ZAPP, Z-A-P-P. The subtitle is The Power of Enlightenment. And the premise of ZAPP is that when you and I talk, there's only two basic ways for us to connect and engage. The healthy one is we listen and uplift each other, or we don't really listen and we push the other one down to show you who's in charge, who's the big man. So I love ZAPP by Byam and Cox because the author practices everything he talks about in the book by just the front page. He's Byam, Cox is the writer. So he's very quick to give credit that I'm a subject matter expert, a SME. I'm Byam. Cox is a writer and an author. So he is my writer. He is my go-to guy. He can take my writing and put it on paper and make it make sense in a way far better than I can, because my gift is talking and researching and connecting and workshopping, not writing. So right on the front page, Byam and Cox, equal size type even. And that was the business book. He ended up doing a healthcare book. It's Byam and Cox and the two healthcare professionals they work with. He did an education version, Byam and Cox, and the name of the two educators that he worked with. I find ZAPP to be absolutely brilliant because he talks about how when we uplift, how productivity goes up, how happiness and safety goes up. And when we do the opposite, productivity goes down. If it's a teacher in a classroom and it's the teacher that's not being nice, grades go down, absentee rates go up. He's just a brilliant man, and I love it because he puts it in practical, easy-to-use terms. So that's ZAPP. Another one is The Prophet by Gibran, the famous poet. And it's important in my family. My mom gave my dad a copy on their wedding night, and my grandmother gave me a copy on the night before my surgery. And so it's a book to me that is forever important in my life. And in it, he can say in 300 words what some people would write a whole book about. But by distilling it down to 300 words or 600 words, his different chapters, it's very, very powerful and very life-affirming. And he talks about things to make you live a more complete, fuller, deeper life. So those are two of my favorite all-time books.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my third question is this. How do you motivate your clients?
Ah, well, part of it is, what is your purpose for the business? What is your purpose personally? So one of the things that has had people draw them to me, or the odd person said, you're strange. That's okay. I can take it. That's their point of view. It doesn't make them right. So what is your passion? What's your purpose? So for me, my passion and purpose is to tell people that if we learn skills, they can help keep us feel safer and help improve our mental health conditions when we go through the overwhelming issues of everyday life. Now, resiliency and being resilient didn't cure my cancer, but it gave me a higher quality experience. In my 5 trips in for treating the two types of the two cancers and having the chemo, I had a couple of dozen healthcare staff in the journey say, Michael, you're not normal for a patient. Why are you still happy? Well, there's a skill called disidentification, and that skill is easy to talk about. It's not always easy to practice, and sometimes you have to practice it repeatedly. So disidentification. Do you have the issue, or does the issue have you? I can't speak for every culture, every family, but many people in my culture in North America and a few in my family, the issue owns them immediately. There's nothing I can do. And for a few minutes, a few days, it's understandable to be overwhelmed. But to misquote a famous singer, you got to shake it off. And I keep waiting to get a lawyer's letter from her saying, quit using my song. And I had cancer. Cancer did not have me. So for literally 23 hours a day in Halifax, Nova Scotia, I would go, cancer, read between the lines. And for 1 hour a day, I would go to the nursing station and say to the staff, I'm going to the men's showers. Because it's the bowel surgery ward, nobody uses the shower room except the last day before they get sent home, if they're healthy enough and we're healing fast enough. So it's bone dry, and I'll be alone. I'm going for prayer time. So I would go for my prayer time, finish prayer time. This meaty part, gently but firmly on the tile floor. I'm mad. I'm frustrated. I'm fighting cancer. I've got a good medical team, an amazing care team, world-class nurses, and I'm mad, angry, scared, and I'm winning today. Now, then I have some things that I didn't talk about yet, but there's a book by a guy called Og Mandino. And Og Mandino wrote a book called The Greatest Salesman in the World, or The World's Greatest Salesman. I don't remember. It's one of those two. But in that book, there is a prayer. O Creator of all things, help me, for I go out into the world naked and alone. And it goes from there. Well, it didn't replace my prayers of faith, but it became one of my major prayers, because basically the prayer says, I'm going to use all the skills and the gifts I've been given by the Creator and have been infused in me by others, but I'm still asking for help. So I get skills to help me cope with the challenges I face. Well, I'd come out of there crying and ready to go. And to go back to Mr. Sargentson, visualize. To go back to my sensei master for martial arts, I deputized all my blood cells, red blood cells and white blood cells, for non-violent action. Now, everybody's got their own methods. I read a book by a young man. His mother made him a tinfoil hat, and at 8 years old, with his brain tumor, he imagined he was fighting a chemo airplane, shooting at all the cancer cells in his brain. Okay, I've read enough books about war to know that bullets and bombs don't always hit accurate. And for me, it just didn't work. But it worked for him, and that's okay. And then I wrote a book by a man who's a very big pacifist, and he didn't want any violence. So he just imagined his cancer was a rock in the stream, and the sand in the stream going by eroded it away. And it worked for him. More power to him. But I'm a geology amateur, a little tiny bit. Took some extra courses along the way about geology. That takes hundreds of thousands of years to erode a rock in a stream. Not fast enough. So I visualized that all my blood cells had several types of martial arts, black belts to the 3rd, 4th degree. And they went through my body going, cancer cell, you're not welcome here. You're going out the urinary tract. Or you're going out the other way, and you're not allowed to come back. You're out of here. So as I walked through the hallways with my IV pole, I visualized that my blood cells were my security detail, taking every cancer cell they found and kicking them out. So it did a few things. It kept my brain focused. I'd given myself an hour to cry, an hour to pray, an hour to have fortitude and express anger. I never bruised myself, so I didn't hit myself that hard, but I felt it was important to express it. And then I would just walk slowly, slowly. I wish I knew. I had a pedometer back then. I'm sure I walked 5 kilometers a day. And then I'd go for my afternoon nap, have supper, have an after supper nap, walk, walk, walk. So those are some of the things.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, my third question is this. What is your biggest success? Biggest success.
Oh, several types. She's over 40 now, but when my daughter was 7, she had a brain tumor. Scary stuff. Right here could impact her reading section. She had a tumor as big as a male thumb down to the joint in the hand. So the healthcare system didn't provide any mental health for her unless the surgery traumatized her, which seemed to be rather backwards. So what I did was I put a training plan together for a 7-year-old, so age appropriate. So we mocked up an MRI scanner under the dining room table. We pulled her under. We turned out the lights. I got a bread bowl. Thump, thump, thump. Said, how's that feel? It's loud, Dad, but it's just boring. Okay. I have a little claustrophobia. My daughter at that age had none. Good for her. I said, if you get bored, just imagine Mommy dancing, because, when Mommy dances, Daddy thinks she's the most beautiful being on the planet. Pull her out. You good? Good. Okay, we're going to do one more. Back in. Lights. Boom, boom. Imagine Daddy dancing if you're bored. When Daddy dances, things just go all over the place. So don't laugh out loud, but you're allowed to smile. Are you good? Yes. Okay. So then I said, as they test you, if you're there for a long time, if you get anxious, and I don't know if you can see I have a red dot here, I said, if you forget to practice the breathing skills, that's okay. And I did that so hard, I broke a little blood vessel. And 30 plus years later, it's never healed. It's still a little red mark. Anyways, so practice some visualization skills, some calming skills. And that was that. I said, and if it's going to take a long time, say, can I fall asleep? Ask permission. Well, fast forward. She has the surgery. She's been tested. Things are going well, but she has to, before leave the hospital, have one more MRI. So her mother and I are waiting in her room because we couldn't go down with her. And in rushes the department head for psychology. And she's doing this. What did you do to her? She fell asleep when she was being scanned. Rah, rah, rah. I said, well, you told me you had no skills to offer her, and that if she was traumatized from the surgery, you would do therapy. I said, isn't that like teaching a boy who drives a car that goes through the windshield after the fact to wear a seatbelt? Why not give her a couple of skills in advance so she has a sense of control over the process? Your system is very primitive and ignores the research and the cultures of Asia, Africa, South America, and many native tribes that breathing and calming is very possible to be done. Well, let's just say that expert has never talked to me since. And yet that hospital had $60 million in place for projects, and yet they weren't teaching kids any life skills to deal with the trauma of their issues. So that's one of my biggest issues, is that she did well, and she came out after surgery in the top 3%. That's mostly the gift of the surgeon and the team, but also I'd like to think because of the calmness, it helped her brain heal well without a lot of stress and anxiety. So that's one of my biggest victories and events. And I've had lots of corporate ones and lots of fun. I had a company that had a 27% absentee rate after violence in the workplace. And after the EAP, that's the experts about physical mental health, had come and gone, they still had a 27% absentee rate. So I put together some resiliency courses that included the families. And within 7 weeks of my courses, they had a better attendance rate than before the event. So that was one of my fun ones. Well, it was serious because these people were traumatized. Somebody put a to their head. That's traumatizing. I get it. But again, nobody gave them any skills to cope. It was just pills and talk. Those are important, but mental health is more than pills and talk. There are skills we can learn, like the disidentification skill, the breathing skills. Anyways, so those are two of mine. One personal, deeply, and one business. My coffee mug.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my last question is this. What was your biggest challenge and how did you overcome it?
Oh, good question. That would be the multiple 6-hour surgeries. Excuse me. At a personal level, and after the first and last surgery, I have a total of 77 medical clips to hold me together. So there was two basic reactions. I watched the other people in the hospital ward having multiple cancer surgeries and major 5 6 hour surgeries. I went from 167 pounds to 133 pounds. So you lose a lot of muscle mass, you lose a lot of physical strength. I had to learn to get my physical confidence back. So I had to eat well and I had to exercise. And yet, because I was cured of cancer, I didn't qualify for any physiotherapy. So I had to advocate for myself. So I asked for help. I got 3 minutes with a physiotherapist for movement therapy because with a 16-inch incision, I had a lot of major discomfort. And so he gave me one exercise. That was great. Practice it 8 times a day, Michael, for the first 6 months. And I did. And that helped stretch me out so that I could stand up straight and be agile. And then he said, when you're fully healed with doctor's permission, you're going to start stretching backwards so that not just sitting 90 degrees is comfortable, but you can lie down with your feet on the floor, knees at 90 degrees, and lie way back because you need to stretch out so that scar tissue is not an impediment for the rest of your life. Okay, so I got the advice of an expert because you don't want to just listen to yourself. Pardon me, other points of view, POVs, are vital from experts when you're dealing with adversity. And so then I just did that. And I had called and written 198 of my friends and business acquaintances and college acquaintances and friends from those times and said, listen, I'm going through big stuff. And here's where in resiliency, engagement with others, a team effort. So I had people of faith praying for me. I had people of neighbors saying, I said, I don't want empathy or sympathy. Don't send me anything except a note. Tell me what's going well. You just got an A, or your child just got an A on a project. The spring flowers are up in your garden. Or you discovered a new type of chocolate at your favorite chocolate store. But just tell me something positive in your life. I don't want this to be about me. Tell me what's going on good in your life. So in my first cancer go around, I got 480 plus notes, letters, pictures, no social media back then. And one lady that was significant in my life, a good friend of my mother's, she sent me, I get really emotional all these years later, a spring purple crocus in a gardening hat. So she said, the gardening hat represents that you're going to get out of here and start gardening. This was February, March. I was going through my first 6 weeks of treatments and cancer surgeries, etc. So in April, you'll be home. It's gardening season soon. Start dreaming of what you're going to plant. The green leaves represent nurturing and growth from nature. And the purple represents spirituality because you're being prayed for. Wow. Wow, wow. The power of imagery with a succinct message was very life affirming. So that's that. It was, here I am.
Thank you, sir. Sir, thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable insight and experiences with you today. It's been a pleasure learning about
Thank you.
your journey and the impactful work you do in release coaching.
I didn't catch that. Sorry. I didn't hear you.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you, sir, sharing your valuable insight and experiences with you today. It's been a pleasure learning about your journey.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor to be here and share a little bit of life because we can all be a little or a lot more resilient. I have a Facebook group people can join for free, Resiliency for Life. And in there, in the media section, I share over 200 things to help you be more resilient. Some are skills, some are mindset, beliefs, and values.
Thank you, sir. Before we were up in there, anything else you'd like to add or any advice you like to give to our audience?
I would say that pay attention to what you digest, your diet, the quality of food, eat the best quality food, not the fancy, but quality. Pay attention to what you social media. Lots of fun there, but there's lots of distractions. And 3, 6, 9 hours a day, unless it's your living, be careful of overconsumption of social media and overconsumption of news. And some news we see is not true. You got a brain, make sure you talk to people that make you uncomfortable about the news because they have a different point of view. Some of them will be very truthful, some of them might be very wrong, but pay attention to how much you digest. I don't watch the news anymore every day. I used to watch it twice a day to pay attention. No, once every couple of days because things don't change that fast. And if it's going to be bad weather, I have an app that tells me bad weather's coming. I don't need to be watching to see what the weather's going to be. So pay attention to what you consume and put up boundaries because I'm starting, being of a certain age, I get emails. I'm starting to see AI generated email that's all fake. It's not real. If I was tired and gullible, I might be shocked and dismayed or tricked into giving money or transferring money. So AI is making things worse, not better in some parts. So pay attention and don't act on things until you get a second, third opinion and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, wise words indeed. Thank you once again, Mr. Ballard, and best of luck with your future advent.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's great to be here.
Thank you, sir. Sir, goodbye and take care. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Goodbye. Take care.